Welcome to Raven Talk, the official podcast of the Raven Tribe. The Raven Tribe is a home for warriors on the path, and is dedicated to training warriors for the battlefield of life. Visit us on the web at theraventribe.com, where you can learn more information on membership, warrior training, as well as links to our official YouTube channel, Facebook group, apparel store, and our official bookstore, Marshall Books.
Welcome back, Tribe. Today we're here with special guest Arsemiris Galva-Batista, and we're going to be discussing warrior groups. Arsemiris, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Fernando?
Good. Doing good. Is it okay to call you Arsi? I'm used to calling you that. Would that be all right with you?
That would be perfect.
Okay, great. So, Arsi, we want to get started, and this is a little bit different for the tribe. Most of what we talk about on Raven Talk relates to the physical side of warriorship, but today we're going to take a look at warrior groups as a way of developing the spiritual aspects of warriorship. So, before we get started, can I ask you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with this type of work?
Yeah, definitely. So, I'm a life coach, entrepreneur. One of the things that I love focusing on is helping women, primarily women, reach their goals while becoming a better person. Throughout the years, I've been able to incorporate more of the spiritual side into my life coaching, which now looking back, it's one of those, it was a piece that couldn't just be taken out. And so in a nutshell, that's pretty much what I do, primarily working with women and helping them reach their goals and just really define who they are, create that person that they were initially designed to be.
Now, Arsi, can you tell me, you refer to what you do in your work as having warrior groups. Can you tell me, how you define a warrior group? What exactly is it? What are the dynamics involved with your warrior groups?
Yeah, so in my specific warrior group, it's faith-based. It's a faith-based group for women who believe in the power of God. And we utilize this space to use when we need prayer, when we want to thank God for accomplishments, when we need God's help, and when there is a need, let's say for a sister to come and support with uplifting and powerful prayer. It's definitely a space where you go if you want to grow spiritually and in life.
Now, can I ask you, what were some of the motivations behind starting these groups? What prompted you to do this? What were your primary, goals when envisioning this project?
Oh, that's an interesting question. It was something that it was never really. It wasn't something that I said, "Hey, I'm going to go and create this warrior group." It was more of a need. I came across a lot of women that were going through a lot of life adversities. I noticed they were getting really bad advice from their girlfriends, and others just didn't have that safe place to speak up. So knowing that I was this life coach, it was kind of like everything just all the pieces came into place. So I decided to create the group so women could have that safe place with faith-based advice, not so much the human advice that is simply based on emotions. And so that's how I created this group that we call the Warrior Sisters Group.
Now, Arsi, what can you tell me about the way the group functions? What's the dynamic of the model that you're working with? How are people, brought into these groups? What is can you explain to me what work is being done there, within the group and what people are going to get out of it?
Definitely. So one thing that we do a little different from maybe other groups is that we meet via conference call. And the reason why we designed that is because a lot of these women are working women in the professional world. So it's kind of hard to manage with schedules and actually meet each other face to face. We do once a month, but in order to continue with this on a week-to-week basis, one of the easiest way we decided to do is via a conference call. And so we cover different areas of our lives. And so this is where it gets a little different from your typical group or even Bible group, if you want to call it. The different areas that we cover are the health, the person's spirituality, the emotions, the career, finances, our kids, home, marriage, and relationships. And so each month we cover each of those areas. The neat thing is that we look at the word, the Bible, for direction, and we seek advice in all these areas. And so, for example, this week it could be my turn, and so it's up to me to dive into the word and actually come and bring out what is it that the Bible is saying about health, or what is it that the Bible says about spirituality, emotions, career, finances. What are those advices that God is giving me? There's a verse that when I was creating the group that just really stood out to me, and that was in Proverbs. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek His will in all you do, and He will show you which path to take." And so, being that our life pretty much makes it up with all these different categories that I just mentioned, it was inevitable for me to just skip that and just have a generic prayer group where we just meet and we just pray. I wanted it to be something much deeper, where it could have a stronger impact in the lives of the women that participate in the group.
Now, Arsi, let me ask you about your choice in terms.
Yeah.
You refer to them as warrior groups, and it's going to be a two-part question here. One, I'd like to know why, in general, you refer to them as warrior groups, and then, more importantly, I want to know how you define a warrior.
Sure. So, to answer your first question, why do I refer the group as the warrior group? Simply, it's because we help women to be more disciplined when facing life, looking away from what is violence and revenge, using our wisdom and intellect to make decisions and take steps in life. Our group places a strong emphasis on making sure all of our participants feel that they have a safe place to vent and seek advice, a place where they can learn that we are protected by God at all times. This is a place to fight your battles with other like-minded sisters. So as you mentioned, I know in your introduction, it's not that we're, fighting physically, but we're more so fighting spiritually in the spiritual world. To answer the second question, how do I define a warrior? It's a pretty lengthy definition because it's a powerful word, and although it's a small, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letter word, it has a strong meaning, and it's just so profound. And so for me, how I define a warrior is someone who is brave or experienced in life adversity, someone who embraces courage, compassion, discipline, and in its training to master its own alter ego and surrender to God 100%. One of the things that we aim to go above our emotions. That's one of the things that we aim to do in our group, is to go above our emotions, our human emotions, and seek God's direction. I believe that a warrior sees the good in people and understands that and acknowledges that there is a spiritual world where there is good and there is bad. The word says that we are created perfect, in the image of God. And so for us as warriors, we know that we are given options on how we want to live. So the quote-unquote bad people, yes, they do exist because of poor decisions, not acting under the will of God. So as warriors, we're aware that was not maybe the initial intent or purpose that God has for that person. So yes, we do pray for those that do us harm, and for those that show us acts of kindness. So we aim to be free. That's our goal, is to be free in God and rest in His perfection versus our own.
Now, Arsi, I want to ask you, and you've somewhat answered it already, but do you follow a particular path of warriorship, a particular philosophy? Obviously you're coming from a Christian background. Is it something very formalized, or is it something that's more organic, kind of growing from your personal experience with God and with yourself?
Yeah. That one, it's something I would say more organic. It's something that goes day by day, and I tweak it and I change it around. So yes, the answer is yes. We see God's presence through meditation, prayer, and reading the Word daily. One of the things that I've learned is to fight, and one of the things that we, learn amongst the group and we've taught each other is how to fight our battles with unified prayers and fasting. And what I mean by that is, the Word says there's power when 2 or 1 is, praying for the same cause. And so it's a group of, 8 women? So imagine 8 women praying over someone that's sick, and fasting over that. It just becomes a lot more powerful. And so we seek the Word for daily guidance and wisdom. And worshiping is a key component that helps us uplift our spirits, even while facing a storm, which was something really hard for me initially. Was, if I'm facing the storm, how could I be singing? But as I began practicing it, it just completely blew my mind, because it kind of separated who I was I would say, earthly, acting on the flesh, and who I was spiritually. I think fleshly, I should have been crying and upset at the world, but instead I was at peace. And here I am worshiping and singing to God and just giving thanks at all moments and just asking Him for understanding. And so, I mean, that's where even peace comes into it, being at peace in the midst of adversity.
Now, Arcee, the element of spirituality, and specifically Christian spirituality, is, you know, a cornerstone of what you're doing. Do you believe that you would have any success with this model, or similar model to the warrior groups without that element, you know, involved?
You know, some of the feedback that I've received is that, me personally, like as I'm analyzing this, yes, this is something that could be used in other platforms, but I would say that if we keep out, let's say, the essence of God, which is the core, you know, I think it wouldn't work. So as spiritual beings, it's inevitable to take out the component of God, in my case, coming from the Christian faith. I do, however, believe that this model could be used and applied in other faith-based or non-faith-based groups.
Now, you mentioned some of the feedback that you received from the members. Can you tell me a little bit about, you know, without giving personal details, you know, names or anything, but tell me a little bit about what people are getting out of this experience. What are they coming away with? You know, what kind of adversities have they been able to get through, you know, with this support group?
Yeah, and so I'll give you like a brief background of some of the women that participate in the group. You know, these are women that are struggling like anyone would, you know, either in their marriage, with their kids, at work, financially. It's just, you know, you name it, we've probably all faced it. We range from different age groups, and so I think that's the part that sets us aside, because we also are able to seek advice from those that are older. But the older are able to think a little bit different because of the younger crowd that's in the group. So yes, there has been a drastic change in the maturity level, specifically spiritually, and in their life as a whole. Many of the women have voiced they've gained spiritual growth and wisdom, the sense of protection, because that's one thing that they've got from this group, is a sense of protection, because we are in like this constant prayer, and then peace overall. And I must note that that it's not peace that only that you could get like off of, you know, if we were to be talking about in the worldly way, you know, by drinking. No, it's a type of peace that only God could give. And I know in Jeremiah 29:10 it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And so when we walk alongside of God, following His will over our lives, we know that whatever comes our way, whether good or bad, God will grant us peace. Many have voiced that this group is not your typical Bible study group, since we have specific topics in which we dive deeper. I would say that other groups are a bit more general. And so this group has, you know, taken a different approach when it comes to someone's spirituality, when it comes to being a warrior sister. And so that's some of the feedback that I've gotten from the women. It's, you know, and overall they all say that it's just been a blessing. It's been like a 360 change from, you know, when we started to where we're at now.
Now, I want to take a minute and kind of address this with the audience listening. The Raven Tribe is dedicated to warriorship, and a lot of what we see externally with the tribe is the physical aspect of things. You know, we train to fight, we train to protect ourselves, our families. You know, we look at a lot of the hard skills. But, you know, if you look at what we're doing, you know, we always say that we're training warriors for the battlefield of life. And it sounds like we have very similar goals. You know, we're going about it in a lot of ways very similarly. But one of the things that's different with our group is we're not faith specific, and we have members that come from, you know, a variety of different faiths. Some have, you know, no faith in a higher power at all. And I know that that's something that we, you know, when you talk to a group of, you know, primarily a group of alpha males that are used to, you know, knocking each other out, you know, you start to talk about God and you know, any specific religion, you tend to lose some people. And even though we have a good-sized population of practicing Christians in our group that will, I'm sure this talk will resonate, very deeply with them. A lot of the members, for one reason or another, have some distance. And one of the things that you mentioned was submission. And submission is something that when you bring up the word submission to a group of hardline warriors, that's not a word they're really used to hearing, and it's not a word that they're really conditioned to accepting. But I want to know, just from your personal experience, what is the role of submission specifically to a higher power in your experience with being able to accomplish these goals? I mean, can you do it without that element? I mean, have you had people try and fail and then come to you and have had success?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I think this is nothing that's practiced, but I grew up being a Christian, and it wasn't. Although I grew up in the faith, there was a point in my life where I did this, and I drifted off, right? And so it was a matter of me trying to do everything my way, and things didn't go well. Whether it was in my career, in relationships, it just didn't go well. And I remember one of the phrases that I used to always say in everything, whether it was in my career, relationships, or just any adversity that I would just come across, I would always say, I'll take care of it. I'll find a solution. And, I got to a point where it was just so much on me, my persona, that it was just so heavy. And so, yes, again, I did believe in God, but it was different from, and this is what I see now, it's different when you say you know God than when you say, I walk with God. And so it got to a point where I was broken, and I had to things were just not going right. And I had to stop myself. It was almost like I had an intervention where I needed to be still and to see where everything was going in my personal life. And that's where, and this is just me personally, I had to just surrender to God and see what is it that He was trying to tell me. And so maybe those that are of the faith, they will understand. Once I broke down, that's when I began to hear His word and hear Him speak to me and to see Him in the littlest things. And that's where, yes, I went through like a really rough process of just being molded, because here I am, a woman who, I was a little bit of a feminist, and I was this alpha. I didn't want to have anyone tell me what to do, let alone a man. And, and then God was in the picture, but in a weird and odd way, it was almost like I was my own God. I relied on myself 100%, and God came second or third. And so with my experience now, I literally feel like I'm walking a much lighter, and it's like the word says, just put all your burdens, put everything onto His feet and let Him take care of it. And that may sound a little bit cliche, but that's kind of what I've done. That doesn't mean that I've just I've sat down and not taking care of situations, but the approach of, I say, prayer, meditation, and just seeking the word and going about things a lot differently versus what I would do in flesh. If I'm pissed, I would just, get into a physical fight or just argue and just let out all the anger. Just taking the approach of what it is to be a spiritual person and a warrior, it's just more, it takes a load off of you. I hope I answered your question.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Now, let me ask you, the model that you have now, are you expanding it? I mean, you mentioned that you're working specifically with women, but I know in previous conversations off air that we've had, there are some of the men groups as well. Are you running these concurrently, or how does that work?
So, yeah, right now I'm currently working on creating a workbook in which women or men could use it as a guide to create their own women's group or men's group, warrior group, or a ministry. And so that's in the process at this moment, because obviously I cannot be everywhere. But I do, just because of what I've seen and the outcomes and how impactful it has been in other people's lives, I want to be able to share this. And so I do see this growing.
Now, are you taking steps then to train others to pick this up and run with it in their communities and where they're interacting with people?
Right now, we're in this phase where the women in the group that are experiencing this, they are being trained on a day-to-day basis be able to carry on their own group, either individually or alongside with their church.
And where do you see this in a year, in 5 years, 10 years? What do you see as the future for this model?
I see this as a model that will not only impact the lives of the women we serve, but also in the lives of their husbands, their children. I see it more like a domino effect in their ministries, their relationships, careers, and finance. I would say that this group just really teaches you how to pray for others and love those around you. And I would say in 5 years, I would love to see this be what the new version of what a Bible study group would look like, versus the generic Bible study group that we're probably all used to, and taking it more on the stance of a warrior. I mean, as a spiritual person, it's just something that we need to be aware of. We're all faced with adversity, and sometimes we try to cover it, and we don't address those issues, and then there's a lot of things that come into play that may cause individuals to just, and that's a whole different story, but I think I listened to something similar, or I was reading an article that you actually gave me when we talk about all this violence that's going on in this world and in our city. A lot of it I always take it back to the church. What are we doing? Are we looking bypast all these issues that are being faced? And if we are, then I think we should start looking into things a little bit differently. And so that's one of the things that I've tried to do is just, work from the core, and that's the family, and that's, the moms, the women, they're leading these homes, and how are they impacting the lives of their husbands, their children, alongside, let's say, in their career as well.
Excellent. Well, Arsi, if people are interested in getting involved, if they want to join one of the groups, if they want to maybe, be mentored by you and learn how to run one of the groups, or if they want to get you out to speak at one of their events or gatherings, how can people reach you? Where can they find you? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
Right now, the easiest way is Facebook. I'm on Facebook, Arsemiris Galva-Batista, but then I also have a group, which is the Warrior Sisters group. It's a group on Facebook, and we have women from all over the city of Chicago, even in other countries that have joined in, and I believe that those two are like the primary outlets that people could just definitely reach out to me. I'm quick on responding, and so I look forward to hearing from anyone.
Great. Well, Arsi, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us today. It's been a great talk, and I wish you the best of luck with the groups. You're doing excellent work. Like I said, the tribe and your warrior groups are working very much in the same vein, trying to get people, up and ready for life, deal with that adversity, keep the chin up strong like a warrior. Thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a good one.